gentlemen, and welcome back to the Steven Hour. We're back with the Bond series. It's been a while since we delved into this series. Today, we'll be looking at my personal top 10 Bond girls. Now, just as with all my top 10s in anything Bond related, these are all purely subjective and my personal opinion. Nothing more. Well, but I also want to have a quick notice that first off, we finally done it. I finally managed to do these videos, these lists in a differently instead of the traditional recording my computer. And let's get on with the list. And of course, as always with these lists, there's always a dishonorable mention. And this dishonorable mention goes to Stacey Sutton, played by Tanyana Roberts. Stacey Sutton was the Bond girl in A View to a Kill. Now, A View to a Kill is often considered the weakest of the Bond films. Although, like I said, though the film is bad, it does have a really great villain, really great henchman, and it was Roger Moore's final. But sadly, this is just, in my opinion, the worst Bond girl. Now, nothing against Tanya, if I believe that is, if I'm pronouncing her name right. First off, I've got nothing against the actress. I actually know her more from that 70s show, and I absolutely loved her in that show. But she, for me, just doesn't fit the ideal Bond girl. First off, Stacey is well, she's basically the smart, intelligent, young, individual. But the problem is she doesn't fit the look of the character. And I can't really say that she acts really good too. She's too much of a damsel in distress. Now, nothing against that type of role for a Bond girl, but you see, one of the things I've always liked about the Bond girls, other than being beautiful and attractive, is that for some of them, they actually are very good characters. They are tough, strong, and very remarkably independent. True, they get saved by Bond in the film, but just because that's the case, they still feel that they are still somehow tough, strong, and, individual. But here, she just doesn't fit the role, and I just hate her. Now, for many, Stacey, there's only two girls that are often considered the worst Bond girls. Other than Stacey, there is Denise Richards from The World Is Not Enough as Dr. Christmas Jones. But for me, Stacey just doesn't. I don't know. I just don't like her in this role. I don't like the Stacey character, and for this. That's why I just feel that this character should have had a really substantial actress to portray her, but instead we got this. So really, yeah, that's all I can say. Now onto an honorable mention, Madeleine Swann, portrayed by Lee Sodux. Hopefully I pronounced that name right, and sorry if I haven't. Okay, now this is the newest Bond girl, and already it's a bit divided. Some like her, some hate her. I'm obviously in the category that liked her. Now, what do I like about her? Well, first off, I like she feels normal. She is more of a normal Bond girl, and that's okay. Another thing is, I also like a bit of a character's backstory, and how she's the daughter to at least a villain that Bond has encountered with in the past. Overall, I just love her, but her character hasn't fully wrapped up yet, as she's going to appear in No Time to Die. She was great in Spectre, and although people thought that her being Bond's true love was rushed, and even I can agree to that, I don't mind it. It's good that Bond finally, settles down. And the one thing you got to love about the Craig Bond films is that they are always trying to intertwine with these characters, and make a more chronological timeline and just overall take risks. And you can't deny them for that. Now, this character, you love or hate, but I'm absolutely thrilled they're bringing her back for another Bond film, because she deserves it. She really does. She needs to be more fleshed out, more character driven, and honestly, I just really like her in the role. That's all I can say. Up now, let's do the top 10s. Here we go. Coming in at number 10, Domino Fatal by, sorry if I pronounced the last name wrong, by Kaden Auger. Sorry if I pronounced the actress's name wrong. Now, Domino was the Bond girl for Thunderball. Now, Thunderball is considered a classic in the series, although in recent years the film has been questioned if it really should remain a classic. I still love the film to this day. I enjoy watching it. I just enjoy the film overall. Domino, and one of the things I love about Thunderball is that it has the hottest ensemble of Bond girls, but they are all different and unique. One's an ally, one's just a cold-hearted villain, and she is this sympathetic character. She is basically the sort of like the villain's mistress, if you could call it that, but not really. And Bond does develop a bit of feeling, develop a friendly relationship. Domino begins to fall for him, but the sad fact, and overall, I just felt that this character is just great in the film. And one of the things I actually love about it is, first off, she doesn't know that she's being a puppet in this game, and when Bond has to reveal the truth, not just who he really works for, but at the same time reveal the truth about her brother being dead, that scene alone was great, and it also showed her character as well as being, although she can be a little bit tough, she's kind of a little bit of a modern girl, which I really like, but she does have her insecurities and weak spots. Now, and she can be a little bit tough. And another thing I always loved was at the end of the film, spoiler alert, she kills the main villain. Now, in a Bond film, Bond is always killing the main villain, but it's a rarity where the Bond girl gets to do that, let alone another character. So that's what I really like about it. Now, for me, this is a Bond girl that I rarely see appear in anyone's personal top 10, but I absolutely love this character. Domino was just fun. She's just a really great Bond girl. And I do like that, she's a bit of, not really a damsel in distress, she's a bit of an obstacle, but at the same time, Bond does develop a little bit of feelings, but at the same time, Bond does show, like with her, he does show a little bit of a softer side, especially for Sean Connery's Bond. Another thing I also want to point out was that scene as Bond's revealing the death of her brother, you could see Bond's hand shake, and then he quickly puts his sunnies on. That just shows just how, emotional or a little bit saddened he was revealing the secret to her. Overall, Domino's just great. She truly is. Coming in at number 9, Tiffany Case, portrayed by Jill St. John. Now, kudos to Jill for one thing with portraying this Bond girl. In interviews, like she said, like with Bond girls, when you take the role, years later, the actresses who played them regret the role. She doesn't. She was glad to be a part of this, and that's what I've always loved about her. How she's felt honored to be a part of this community, the whole Bond girl thing, and regardless what you think of Diamonds Are Forever, I really like this character. Tiffany Case is a diamond smuggler, and at the beginning, she's a tough, no nonsense individual. She will, she will not take, she won't take no for an answer, but she won't be told what she can and can't do. But here's the thing, though Jill, who portrays Tiffany Case, really does a remarkable job portraying the character in the film, I do have a gripe with this character, but that's not anything against Jill. It's the writing, and that she becomes a bit of a bimbo after Bond reveals, who he really is, and the character from that point forward continues to be, well, bit of a bimbo, and just that sort of damsel in distress rather than this tough individual. Like I said, nothing against Jill, it's mostly the writing. Now, why do I put her on the list? Well, I absolutely love Jill's performance. I love her snarky one-liners. She's a tough American woman. In fact, she's the only American to portray a Bongo, if I recall that correctly. And she is just absolutely fantastic in the role. Absolutely is. Now, let's get to number 7. Number 7. Oh, no, sorry, correction. Number 8. Not number 7. Number 8. Honey Rider. Now, right now, you people who are huge Bond fans are getting your pitchforks and saddling up a mob to come get me. Now, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, here's the thing: Honey Rider was the first Bond girl. She came out in the first official Bond film in the series, Doctor No. And that scene of her coming out on the wall in that gold bikini, in that bikini with the knife, is absolutely not just iconic in the series, but in cinema history. She's portrayed by Ursula Andress. And she's considered by many to be the best Bond girl, the number 1. But she's at number 8, not even in the top 3. Well, here's the thing. Just because someone is iconic doesn't necessarily mean that the character should necessarily be put on a certain pedestal because of that fact. Now, I'm not saying... Now, she definitely makes the top 10 because she is iconic, and I do love her character. The innocent, naive, she is tough, she is strong, and her and Connery's chemistry here is absolutely fantastic, in my opinion. She is the first, but another thing is also, she doesn't really spend that much time in the film. If you look at other Bond girls, they are there for the majority of the film. Here, she appears in the latter half. Then again, but to be fair to Dr. No's credit, the whole film was completely experimental. So with that being said, I don't really blame it. You see, in the first 3 films in the series, the filmmakers were struggling how to make the films, how they wanted to do. By Goldfinger, they finally established the formula for the series and actual films to follow. But yeah, nothing against her. She is great. She is absolutely fantastic. And I'm sounding like I'm giving more negative opinions. She is a fantastic Bond girl nonetheless, but she's definitely not in my top 3. So please don't kill me. Like I said, this is all personal opinion, and everyone should be entitled to that. Now, number 7. Natalia Simonova, portrayed by Isabella Sorokobo. Hopefully that name was pronounced right. Now, arguably the best Bond girl to ever come out of the Pierce Brosnan era. Now, when it comes to Pierce Brosnan films, arguably he's only 2 really great Bond films, in my opinion. Well, GoldenEye is his greatest Bond film. Tomorrow Never Dies, The World Is Not Enough are mediocre, but And Die Another Day is considered the film that destroyed the franchise. Now, I really love Natalia here. You see, GoldenEye had the idea of adapt Bond to a more modern world, and Natalia was definitely more of a tough, strong individual. She is definitely smart and intelligent on the computer. She's, very, tough in fight. She takes no nonsense. Basically, Natalia is this Russian putagrammer, and after an incident, she becomes part of Bond's mission. Although she doesn't know. Well, you see, they don't meet until halfway in the film. But early in the film, they establish a character as being this tough, resourceful, and brilliant. And when she meets Bond, she doesn't fall head over heels. It takes a while until eventually she warms up to him and begins to fall for him. Another really great character trait. Now, Natalia is a really great character, really great Bond girl, but when I look at most people's, at least a more traditional top 10 list, she doesn't appear at all. And that confuses the hell out of me, as she deserves to be on a top 10. But she definitely makes my top 7. Now, this character really is great. She is the best of the Pierce Brosnan Bond girls. And that isn't really much of an accomplishment when you consider that really not all main Bond girls from Pierce Brosnan's era were great. But I will say that that Natalia it definitely shared far better chemistry with Pierce than all the others. And she's just really great in the role. I love the bit where she bosses Bond around. I really love that. She's just great, and that's all I can say. At number 6 is Dr. Holly Goodhead by Lois Chill. Now, Moonraker is often up there as the worst Bond film. Now, despite what I really feel that the film was pretty good, and it's definitely fun and entertainable. For me, Dr. Holly Goodhead is for me the best Bongo equal, and by that I mean like Bond always has sometimes get these Bond girls that are like secret agents and are equal to Bond. Now we have others like Agent Triple X from The Spy Who Loved Me being the first and arguably the best, but for me, I felt that Holly Goodhead was far better. I was almost going to put Agent Triple X at the number 6 spot, but you see, the thing is, although I find that character to be really great, I don't really feel. I don't know. I find the actress who played her delivery very wooden. Here, I just think that she is just natural. She's basically a clone, but I find she's far better because she doesn't have that wooden delivery. And she doesn't have that. I feel that she can handle herself in a fight. She absolutely skillfully intelligent, and I just absolutely love her. Love her performance, and she is just overall great. She is for me just one of those Bond girls that just doesn't get the recognition she deserves. I mean, people know her because of her name, Goodhead, but yeah, she just needs to get more recognition than she deserved. And she's just really great. She can handle herself in fight. She's intelligent, and I just like that she's a female spy, and works with Bond, and that has to work with Bond, and she's just honestly stunning, and she just absolutely looks perfect for the role. That's all I can say. Number 5, Solitaire. Now Live and Let Die is one of those films in the franchises that saved the series. Now, this was Roger Moore's first Bond film, and for me, Solitaire is one of the best Bond girls from his era. Solitaire was portrayed by Jane Seymour. Seymour, hopefully that name was pronounced right. In the film, she basically is a has this ability to predict the future by looking at cards, and she works for the main villain. Although she's a slave for the main villain. She's forced to work for him when she really doesn't want to. Eventually, she meets Bond, and the thing is, she still has these powers. But the thing is, she can only have these powers if she remains a virgin. And early in the film, we find out that there was a card saying that her and Bond would be lovers. Now there is a scene with like how it happens, like how they do it, I'll say, and it's a bit not just sleazy, but it feels very underhanded. Yeah, the film's changed with the times. Overall, I just really like that she's beautiful, and she's definitely memorable. And honestly, he feels sorry for her because she's forced in this life. And at first she doesn't want to leave, but then she slowly gets to know Bond. They get to spend a bit of time together. She falls for him. Overall, she's just a really fascinating character to me, and she's just iconic. She's just so iconic, and she's stunning, and she's the only one that could pull off this look that you see in the picture. She's the only one that could pull this off for me. Number 4, Octopussy, portrayed by Maude Adams. Interesting fact, Maude Adams actually appeared in a previous Bond film in The Man with the Golden Gun as the Bond villain's mistress. But for me, this is her as Octopussy is her best performance as a Bond girl, and I'm really glad they brought her back. Now, For those who don't know, Octopussy was a film that really was made to really compete with a rival Bond film being made at the time. And as a result, the film was meant to be bigger and badder and, to rival this new Bond film that was coming out. And overall, Maude really just portrays this strong, tough, independent woman. She's a leader of a criminal gang. She has a code of ethics. She's a thief. She's a gang leader, in a way, but she's no murderer. Now, she leads a cult of pretty much a gang of all women, which I find to be pretty interesting. And the fact that she has a connection to Bond and has a respect for him, as again Bond actually communicated with her father in the past, and doesn't want revenge, but thanks him for giving him a chance to have an honorable death. Something I've always admired. Now, despite the name being off-putting, like I said, and off-putting, she is definitely a really rounded and very well-written character. Maude portrays her absolutely beautifully. And another thing also got to admit, out of all the Bond girls from Roger Moore's tenure, she absolutely, especially in this film, looks age appropriate. Because here's the thing, as we all know from Roger Moore, he played the role for 12 years in 7 films, and was getting old. Now, honestly, Maude looked age appropriate to be alongside Roger, and absolutely love they did the opportunity. She's just great. And I like how her character was built up in the film. You think she's gonna be the main villain, but it turns out she's not. Another really good thing they did with this film. She's just absolutely fantastic. That's all I can describe. She's fantastic, and she's my number 4. Now, coming in at number 3, Pussy Galore, portrayed by Honor Blackman. Now, here's the thing. Goldfinger is considered the gold standard for any Bond film. And for me, one of the many things that made that happen was, well, pussy. I hate saying that. But you get the idea. The reason why is because she's not a damsel in distress. She's basically a villain. She's working with the villain. But she grows to sort of be not really attracted to Bond, but she grows to just, the relationship between her and Bond just grow in the film as they become very friendly. Overall, for me, Blackman just really just nails the role. She plays this tough bad girl turned good. Although the scene with her and Bond in the barnyard is very questionable by today's standards, and I'm not condoning it. I honestly find that Blackman just nails this role. She plays it tough. You believe that she's one hell of a fighter, and I just like just how she portrayed the character, and her line delivery when Bond asks her name just cracked the hell out of me up. I actually feel sorry for half these girls for the names they were given. I mean, just imagine how they would have gotten teased at school. And again, there's a reason why they have these names. You see, when Ian Fleming was writing these the female characters, and was writing Bond, he didn't give Bond an exotic name. So instead, decided to give that to the women. And most of them are innuendos. So yeah, wow. Yeah, Honor Blackman is just iconic for her Bond girl. She is just iconic. In fact, out of all these 3 in my top 3, she definitely nails the icon. The next 2 for me, on the next 2 coming up, are there because they're so well written characters. They truly are. Now, coming in at number 2, Vesper Lynn, portrayed by Eva Green. Eva Green. Now, wow. Now, out of all the Bond girls from Craig's era, she's definitely the best. Then again, there really is no comparison, as really Bond really doesn't. From Craig's era, he didn't really have a main Bond girl, really. If you could even call it that. Eva Green. Okay, first off, Vesper Lynn. In the books, she is the first Bond girl. So it makes sense when you do the reboot, you have to do her justice. She absolutely does. She's this. I like how, like, the relationship between these two in the film, it's hard to explain, but it's almost like opposite attracts. Bond tries to do the charm on her Vespa, and Vespa, just picks at his ego. I love that, and it's just like how there's like playful banter between the two throughout the film, but it doesn't. And then of course, eventually Bond falls head over heels for her to the point where he considers leaving the Secret Service, and Vespa in a way falls for him too. And I like how, okay, I will admit, these number twos have such shocking endings for their characters, and they are just like the doomed romances. Again, Bond can't have a happy life. He can't be married. He can't have kids. And these two girls in the top two, and these two girls at my number one and two other reasons why. Green just absolutely nails the role. First off, she looks pretty, but her acting really nails the part. Now, I like how some liberties were like these two really did some liberties taken, from the book. Like certain bits of the character from the book were not adapted for these films because again, they came from a certain time period, and what may have been acceptable then doesn't necessarily make it acceptable now. And again, that's what you can say with all the Bond girls. Again, the characters change with the times. Some do, some don't. She absolutely is fantastic. She, for me, I feel that out of all, she really nails the banter, and she does come from a tragic past. But compared to number one, I really can't say that her past can really be considered tragic. I also like her name, West Berlin. It's actually a pun of West Berlin. Again, this was during the Cold War in the books, but of course for this 2006, when this film came out, which of Casino Royale for the reboot, different. Overall, Eva just absolutely nails this role. Uh, and that's all I can say. But, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Number one, Tracy Teresa Divincenzo. Tracy, portrayed by Diana Rigg. Hands down, my number one favorite Bond girl. First off, she's pretty. She's gorgeous. And the chemistry she has with George Lazenby. Now, this is the Bond girl from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And she's definitely one of the most interesting, iconic, and beloved Bond girls. And she is definitely unique, as she has done one thing all Bond girls on the list can't say they've done. She was the first to become Mrs. Bond. And how Bond falls for her is absolutely believable. It's absolutely fantastic. Like how it's written was done really well. Although you can question a little bit. On Her Majesty's Secret Service is considered a classic. Is considered a classic now. But back then it was mixed. Some loved it, some hated. Most didn't like it because George wasn't in it. I personally love it. It's my favorite film, my Bond film, my number one favorite. I will say that till my dying day. And overall, Tracy, like, Diana just portrays her a little bit of a snob, a little bit posh, but when you find out her backstory, you definitely feel a lot of sympathy for her. She is the daughter of basically a crime boss, a crime lord, and her backstory was she, was a bit of a rebel in her youth, and eventually, against her father's wishes, she she went and married this count who eventually left her, stole her money, and she had a child, but it ended in a miscarriage. Basically, she was broken and tragic, and then she meets Bond, and Bond is drawn to her. She's a little bit drawn to him, but she doesn't like the idea of being tied down. Not really. And overall, she just, you know, she's just absolutely, Diana just absolutely doesn't nail the character in the from book version, but she does something unique. She makes the role her own, her act, and she was an already established actress, and considering that like Lazenby was a model. They really needed it. I know. And overall, this film just absolutely, just for me, is absolutely nailed fantastically. The character, she just absolutely just really is fantastic. Nothing else can be said about this character. Her tragic ending is also very poignant. It's very sad, and you think for a moment these two are going to live happily ever after, but then that tragic moment happens. She is absolutely a great Bond girl. She is my number one. Tracy, portrayed by Diana Rigg. Well, that does it. That is my top 10 favorite Bond girls. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Who would you have on the list? Who is your worst? Please leave your names in the comments for your favorite. And next in the Bond series, I will be doing my top 10 favorite Bond kills. So until that list, ladies and gentlemen, so long for now. This is a Steven Hour. We are tuning out.